Gledajte domaćica YouTube kanal, prvi srpski kanabis vlog, a naš sagovornik ovog puta je Marc Emery, poznati kao Prince of Pot ili ti Kralj Trave, čuveni kanadski aktivista, preduzetnik i političar koji je ostvario možda i najznačajniji internacionalni uticaj u promjeni zakonske regulative kanabisa. Marc, welcome to Serbia.
Hey, it's good to be here. I had a lovely time.
Thank you for agreeing to speak with us. So, I'd like to start this interview with a completely private question, and that would be...
I love Albanian weed.
That was not that question. The question is, when was your first marijuana experience, and how would you describe it?
Oh, wow, that's a good question, because my first experience of getting high was on December 21, 1980. Now, I remember this date very specifically, because it was 10 to midnight, and I was, I think, naked, and this woman I was with, I was falling in love with her that night, and she was just wearing a top. I think she was naked down below. And anyway, I was going to do some activity there for the first time, but then she looked at me, and she said, before you do that, let's smoke this. And I just noticed she was rolling a joint all this time, and now she has finished rolling the joint. So we smoked this joint, and wow, I remember the full moon seemed so big, and having sex with her was so amazing. And I fell in love that night with her, and we were together 8 more years, and it was my great love of my early days. She was 8 years older than me. I learned so much from her. So for me, the first time getting high was amazing, and I always have these great associations with cannabis and love and sex and full moons and beautiful times. And to me, that's what marijuana does. It makes everything more fun.
More beautiful, okay. So,
because I don't have a medical use. If I needed it for a medical reason, then the cannabis would go for this medical reason. The cannabis works in an interesting way. If you have Crohn's disease or epilepsy, when you take in the cannabis, all the cannabinoids go to the area of medical necessity first. So if you have medical needs, the cannabis goes there. You don't really get high. But I have no medical needs, so the cannabis goes right to my brain, and then gets me really high.
So, were these experiences your motive to start dealing with cannabis activism? Or you were just inspired by the freedom of people that cannabis often symbolizes?
I read Ayn Rand in October of '79, and I smoked pot on December 21, 1980, and I immediately combined the two together. I said, I want to do something revolutionary with this cannabis like Howard Rourke would do in The Fountainhead. And so that's what I proceeded to do eventually. Actually, I became an activist, but I didn't do anything about cannabis for 10 years until 1990.
Yeah.
And then that's when the government of Canada, they banned all the books and magazines about marijuana in a way that I think is so offensive for a democracy. I mean, you hear about these things in Russia or dictatorships, but Canada had banned everything about marijuana. The bongs, the pipes, the weed, the books, the magazine.
Yeah.
You couldn't even buy a book. The police were going to bookshops or publishing companies and taking all the books. It was amazing. So, and I learned this in a very strange way. I used to have a radio show on a radio station, and I would like to listen to this band called the Dead Kennedys, a punk band.
Okay.
They're very good. I mean, they were very good in the 1980s. But then the lead singer, a fellow named Jello Biafra, I'm sure not his real name. Anyway, he was going and doing spoken word tours, and part of his spoken word performance was this segment called Grow More Pot. And it was about this amazing book by a man named Jack Herrera that talked all about the hidden and suppressed history of cannabis in America and Canada and around the world, and that the people did not know about this glorious history of cannabis. And his book was telling us. And it was this book that was banned in Canada.
Yeah.
So I immediately said, this is not right. And I went to the United States and I got this book, and I brought it back to sell to Canadians. And that began my 28-year career promoting cannabis and legalization.
Okay. So, why is the war on marijuana and other sacred plants the most important issue of our time?
Well, first of all, plants belong to the people. This is a very important 5 words. plants belong to the people. They do not belong to the government or the church or authorities or gatekeepers. They belong to the people. And this is true in our religions like Christianity, where in Genesis, the Bible says, take all these seed-bearing fruits that I give you and make meat of them, meaning eat them, chow down, do what you can.
Smoke them.
Basically, yeah, smoke them. It's all you've got. You only have what's on this earth. And so you have to do the good things with it, which is make usefulness. Now, Genesis 1:30 says, and God looked upon the earth and saw that it was all good. He didn't say, oh, I made some mistakes.
Like
I need these humans to correct my mistakes, or I need my churches, or No, he didn't. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says it's all good. So we have to respect that if we are a Christian. And we have to realize that these plants are here for a reason. Now, the best plant of all plants is cannabis. And the worst plant of all plants, I don't know why it's here. It was probably healthier at one time. But tobacco. Tobacco is now a very negative, dangerous plant. But it's possible because humans have manipulated it in a bad way to make it worse than when it was. Because 150 years ago, when we smoked tobacco, we would take some hits of a cigar, and we would cough a lot. We would cough a lot, and you'd get kind of high, and you would stop. Tobacco originally wasn't the kind of thing you were going to smoke all day long in this addicted manner. And I'm worried because in Europe, they love this very vulgar habit of mixing tobacco, the most dangerous plant, with cannabis, the most useful plant. And for me, this is a problem because you can never say that cannabis is safe if you're mixing in tobacco. But also, I'm worried about young people. When young people are curious about tobacco, they find someone who likes marijuana, but that person mixes it with tobacco, and now this young person who is curious about cannabis is now going to be addicted to tobacco. I think this is a very bad behavior, and one that will prevent us from having success in legalization.
Okay.
But the plants belong to the people, and it's up to us to make these decisions, not the governments, not the churches.
Of course. Hemp BC stores.
Yes.
We are interested to know more about them. What are Hemp BC precisely, and what was the goal in opening so many stores in Canada in 1994?
Okay, that's the early phases. It was called Hemp BC then. We changed it to Cannabis Culture a decade later. And the Hemp BC, the first revolutionary thing it did is we sold books and magazines, and we sold pipes and bongs. All these things were illegal. And then we put out a brochure, a pamphlet, for people in Canada saying how you can do what I am doing and open your own shop and create a revolution and sell bongs and pipes and also seeds and also books and magazines. And so in Canada, in 1 year, 60 different people opened up shops in all the places in Canada following my instructions. So this was very good because I emphasized to people, we need to become capitalists. We need to become entrepreneurs. Yeah. We can't be socialists. We can't be hippies. This is not a good way. You will make no money. We need to make money because we need political power. We need economic power. And we need an infrastructure for our movement. We need to have magazines. We need to have glass blowers.
But
we need stores.
A market for that.
Well, there is a market, though. There is always a market for such things. There's a market for all those things in Serbia. There's a market everywhere because cannabis has people who want to buy it and smoke it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's the world's most universally beloved plant. In fact, now, in this modern era, cannabis is growing in more places than any other plant because we have co-evolved for almost 1 million years with this plant. We grow up beside it. When we are apes, we are dealing with this cannabis plant. We are eating the cannabis plant. When we have an injury in the early ancient times, we learn to rub the cannabis plant into the injury. And so over time, we are having this relationship. And the cannabis plant is a very intelligent plant. It's not a stupid plant. It knows we love the cannabis plant. So the cannabis plant knows that we will plant it in many places. And so if the number one important thing for a plant is survival, and reproduction, which is what every plant is most interested in doing. The cannabis plant has very cleverly harnessed human labor and human behavior to promote its existence.
Yeah.
So wherever
Wherever
there are humans, there is cannabis. So to me, cannabis is the most successful plant in the entire plant kingdom because it is the most manipulative of humans to grow it everywhere. Like, yeah, we like to grow corn and we like to grow other things, but we are not growing corn in the Arctic.
Yeah.
We are not growing corn in the Antarctic. We are not growing corn in the jungle. But we are growing cannabis in the jungle, in the Arctic, in the water, we are growing cannabis
our rooms.
In rooms everywhere. Every city and village has cannabis growing because we love this cannabis plant. So that is a very intelligent plant. We're dealing with advanced plant here, and we're dealing with advanced humans who are using this plant cooperatively, and great things are happening with this relationship.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Mark, tell us what's wrong with, what's the biggest problem with cannabis censorship, and what results were accomplished by changing sector 462.2?
Wow, you know the exact rule that made books and magazines illegal. Well, you know, this was an interesting battle because at first, in my previous campaigns, like for example in my place, it was illegal to open your shop on a Sunday because of religion. And I didn't like that. I thought, I'm an atheist, I'm paying the rent for the Sunday, but I can't open on the Sunday. So I decided I'm going to open on this Sunday, and it was and then the police came and they said, you cannot open this store on the Sunday. I said, I'm going to open anyway. And I'm going to break the law in many different ways. You will be confused, I said. Anyway, I break the law 8 weeks in a row, and I get the summons to go to court every time. And eventually we have a trial, and they find me guilty. So I refuse to pay the fine, and eventually they put me in jail for this. Well, actually, people are very upset about that because they didn't think you could go to jail for opening your own business on a Sunday, and people were upset about it.
Yeah.
And so the Parliament actually changes the law so that my little bookshop can open, but no one else can open. They say, okay, if you have a little bookshop, and I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. Why are you making this exception? Because I'm making a noise. So then other people, though, say, hey, this is ridiculous and not fair. We want to be open on Sunday, and then big businesses say, we want to be open on Sunday. And when big business says, we want the same rights as this little bookshop, then the government, they collapse, and then they say, okay, we get rid of this whole law, and then so everybody is allowed to open. So everybody says, hey, you did a good thing there by going to jail. And so I thought, okay, I will do this more. And so the next thing was completely different. The police went and said, there is a new rap record by this group, and we think it's obscene, and if anyone sells this record, we will put them in jail. And I thought, wow, normally if you're going to have censorship, you would think that the courts or the parliament would say, okay, this is illegal. Not the police. The police, they just said, we think it's obscene and we don't think anyone should sell it. And I thought the police should never make up this decision. So I went to the United States and I buy 100 copies of this now illegal CD. It's by the group 2 Live Crew, and it's called As Nasty As They Want to Be. It's all about sex, I will tell you. But it's very funny, actually. It's a funny thing. So anyway, I advertised in the newspaper, I'm going to sell this illegal CD, and if the police want to come and charge me, this is what I did with the Sunday shopping. I would buy advertisements saying, I dare you to come and charge me. Well, if you say that, they probably will charge you. So the police came and charged me for the Sunday opening, and now they are charging me. The second person in the lineup to buy it is a policeman. Yeah. And the lineup goes all the way down the street and around the corner. Hundreds and hundreds of people come to buy this illegal record. So I open the door and everybody's coming in and we sell all the records right away, 100. And then later on that afternoon, the policeman comes by with his gang and they raid my store. And they serve me with a warrant. You are being charged for selling an obscene record and you have to go to court. Okay, so we go to court. It's a big court. And the judge, though, he doesn't play the tape. You're supposed to play the obscene thing in the court so the media and everyone can decide if it's really obscene or if it's a political persecution. Well, the judge says, I'm not letting you play this. I think it's obscene. So the man, the prosecution, he reads the lyrics out loud.
Yeah.
This turns out to be a really good thing because he is so white and so conservative. So he's reading these lyrics and he's going, me so horny, me so horny, me love you long time. And everyone in the courtroom is rolling in laughter there, hysterics. It is so funny, this man reading these lyrics like this. And the judge is very upset. He is banging his gavel. He is saying, this is not a laughing matter. This is a serious courtroom. You will all behave. And yet as soon as he reads again, everybody laughs and it's hilarious. And it goes on and on. So he empties the courtroom many times. And then everybody comes back in and it starts and we all laugh. So that would be, my argument was, how can it be obscene, Your Honor, when obscene things make us sick and disgusted, but everyone in the court is laughing and having fun?
Yeah.
So therefore, it cannot be obscene. But the judge, he doesn't agree, and he convicts me.
Okay.
Just like the Sunday shopping. So as you can see, I am not winning in the courts, but I'm still making changes. Because after I go to jail for Sunday shopping, they get rid of this. And then after I am convicted of this obscene record, it was so embarrassing and there was so much criticism that the police said, okay, we're not doing that again. It's not our job. We thought it was our job, but now we are mistaken. It's not our job. So then the police said, we're not doing that anymore. So then I thought, wow, this is good. I even lose, but I win. Okay, so maybe if I really win, it will be good. So then I realized that the government has banned these books and magazines like High Times about cannabis, and so I decided to sell them. But what happens is strange, in that I buy the advertisement and hundreds of people come and to buy old High Times magazines, growing books. I'm selling everything. I bring them all from the United States and I'm selling all these books on growing, and hundreds of people come and I make lots of money. But the police do not come. And then when the media goes to the police and says, why are you not charging him for these illegal books? And then they go, we are not playing his game anymore. We are not playing his game. We know he just wants to get attention and go to court. So we are not going to play his game. We're not going to bother him in his books. Now the reason for this, though, is because the police are afraid. They think if we go and charge him, he will go to court. But we have a very bad feeling that the courts will not approve of this law, because this law is very wrong. It's because it's saying if you sell a book that tells the truth, you can go to jail. There are not many things in a democracy where this is possible. So the next week I put more ads in the newspaper. I get more growing books. I bring up the writers of these growing books, Ed Rosenthal. I bring the famous Jack Herrera and I get them to sign the books, and they're in the newspapers, and they're doing many interviews, and I'm trying to provoke the police to come and arrest us, but the police do not come. So this goes on actually for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then
let's calculate how many times have you been arrested, accused, and contaminated?
I have been arrested 33 times for cannabis, just cannabis. I have been in 39 different prisons and jails for cannabis. And by the way, when I say cannabis, actually not many times for selling or even possessing. Many times I was arrested and put in jail for selling vaporizers, for promoting vaporizers. I went to jail for 5 years in the United States for selling seeds to Americans in the mail. I gave an American a half a gram of hashish once, and instead of smoking it, he took it back to America. He got caught. He told them I gave it to them, and then the police in Canada came and arrested me and said I was trafficking in hashish for this little amount that this American gave. And the American, they actually flew him all the way from the United States to Canada so he would testify, because by this time they were very upset with me. So when you think of, oh, I have 39 prisons and jails for cannabis, you think, oh, you must be selling the weed or growing the weed.
How many years did you spend in jail?
Just 6 and a bit, 6 and a quarter maybe.
Did that
5 in the U.S. and about 1 year and 2 or 3 months in Canada.
Did the time spent in jail affected you somehow? And
No, in a good way, though. I always appreciated my time in jail. I'm not upset about it. Nothing bad happened to me. Jails are always uncomfortable, so you cannot think of that as a bad thing. Jails are always uncomfortable. They're usually kind of dirty. They're not very pleasant. But the most shocking time was when I got 3 months in jail for passing one joint. Because I thought I was going to get a $500 fine. But the judge is...
You pass it to the policeman?
No. In fact, the policeman never saw this joint. He never... I spoke at a university. After the university, I said to everyone, okay, let us meet at the park and we will smoke some joints. So actually, we make about 100 joints. We make a lot of joints. And we have about 50 people. We all go to the park. And we're smoking huge quantities of joints. And then we are finished. We have no more joints. And at that point, a policeman comes up and says, I smell weed. Well, of course you smell weed. We are smoking a lot of weed. He said, all right, what is going on here? But there is no more weed, so we're just standing around talking. And then the policeman goes to this young person, about 22, and says, what are you doing here? And the man just said, I'm smoking a joint with Mr. Emery. And the policeman says, did Mr. Emery pass you a joint? And I don't know why he does this, but he goes, yes. So the policeman turns around and puts me in the handcuffs and arrests me, and I go to jail for 1 week before I even get bail for trafficking. Now they're charging me for trafficking. Well, this is an offense where you get arrested right away and put in jail. So, okay, wow, I'm in jail. I remember cleaning the floors for many days in this jail. And then I get bail, and I go back to Vancouver. But when I go to trial, I'm thinking, okay, it's just one joint. It will only be a small penalty, right? Because that is the normal. But yes, I know I'm in bad shape when the judge says, well, first of all, the prosecution is asking for 3 to 6 months, which is possible, right? Because I am trafficking, it's possible to get 7 years. That's what it is for trafficking. Even with just possessing a joint, could be 6 months in jail and $2,000 fine. So I'm thinking, okay, it's just one joint. Nobody goes to jail for one joint, is what I say. So I'm thinking a $500 fine. Well, the judge is saying very bad things about me. He's saying I'm a menace to the community. I'm a bad influence on young people. And I get the feeling that this is not going very good, that my lawyer has not made our case. And then he says, I sentence you to 3 months. And as soon as he says 3 months, they come, they put the handcuffs on, and they're taking me away. And I'm going, 3 months for one joint? That's crazy. And then that's all you can hear. I'm gone. Anyway, I did many things in that. I did some great writing. I have a great diary from this time. I made some great observations. I learned a lot. I was reading a lot of books. My job was to be the janitor of where all the people who worked in the prison. So anyway, I'm doing this job, and I'm really proud of my work. And so I had all these great experiences in this prison, but it's still prison.
Yeah. How much money you needed to invest in all goals you have reached so far?
Well, that was the great thing about all my plans. I told people, listen, you can open a bong shop with maybe just $10,000 US, and you will have a job for all your life. So it's the best thing. Find the $10,000, go to a small place in a good area, and rent this place, and then put bongs and pipes. I would tell people, this is what will sell fast. I know what it will sell. And then many of those places are still in business 20 years later. 23, yes, many of them. Because you can make a living for yourself with a bong shop. Now, I would recommend that people sell seeds. I started selling seeds in 1994, and it was very successful. I became the world's biggest seed seller, and we were selling millions of dollars in seeds. In fact, from 1994 to 2005, I gave away $5 million. All the profits I was able to give away to these great things like ballot initiatives in Washington, D.C., and in Colorado for medical marijuana, Arizona for medical marijuana, Alaska many times. But Alaska was not successful, not the times I was there. but I was successful in Washington, D.C., and Colorado, and also in Arizona, but in the courts it was overturned. So we were very successful in encouraging this retail capitalist revolution. And anyway, I was selling those magazines for many years. Finally, in 1994, in Toronto, the police send this attractive woman, somewhat like you, into this high school. And, I mean, she's very attractive, and she goes to all the boys in the oldest grade, and she said, I want to get some weed. Can you get me some weed? Well, even these boys who don't smoke weed, they say, oh, wow, you're so beautiful. Of course I will get you weed, right? Of course I will get you weed. So they go get weed, and over 2 months, she gets weed from 52 boys.
Okay.
And then the police charge all the 52 boys for trafficking. And everybody is really upset because, first of all, it's not even a real trafficking. It's a police undercover trying to get people in trouble. And everybody was very upset. And the prosecution said, listen, this is not a good campaign. And we are going to drop these charges, actually. So, but before they dropped the charges, we are in front of this school giving a pamphlet. And in the old days, it's just a basic pamphlet. It was called 10 Questions and Answers for Every Student, Teacher, and Parent About Marijuana. Really basic, old school stuff.
Okay.
Because in those days, there was no internet and there's no information. So we were just giving this pamphlet. Well, the principal of the school, he calls the police. He said, there are people giving my students information about marijuana. And the police come and they say, you know, this is illegal. And we say nothing, actually. And he says, okay, well, if we keep giving the pamphlets in. So he says, okay, I'm going to write you up. And we think, oh, thank God, after 4 years, a policeman is finally stupid enough to give us this ticket. Okay, so we are successful now in this one thing. So now we go to court, but we need to have the prosecution prosecute us. Normally we think, okay, he's going to drop the charges. It's a stupid charge. It won't work. But my lawyer says, no, he's going to charge you and he's going to pursue it. And we go, yay, thank goodness. So we get in we go to court, and the judge listens to our argument, and she says what we think she should say. She says, this is a very bad law. This is a law that is not legal because you cannot ban this truth. So I am going to strike down this bad law, and now you are free to distribute any information about marijuana. So then the prosecution realizes they made a mistake. Okay, because now the whole law is gone. And then, actually, by this time, I was making a lot of money. I was selling thousands and thousands of magazines every month all across Canada. I'm the distributor because I know that no one is going to charge us until... So finally, when we break down the law, then High Times says, okay, we are going to send our magazine in the usual way, and all my business ends because now it's legal. Everybody, all the usual bookshops, they're having it, and it's on the newsstand. So I am successful in that now everyone can buy books and magazines about marijuana, but my business is now over for selling them.
How many plants on the globe approximately came out of your own personal garden?
Well, I was producing seeds everywhere. I was producing them in Oregon, California, Michigan, and many places in Canada. And I was buying them all from Europe as well, all the Dutch seed banks. And eventually I boasted that I sold 3 million seeds to Americans and 1 million seeds to all the other places, including Canada, Australia, New Zealand, mostly English language places.
Okay.
Because in that period, there was not much translation for Europe. But every now and then, I would send seeds to Europe or Mexico. But not too much, because you could go to Amsterdam and buy these seeds if you're European.
Yeah.
But we sold 4 million seeds, and when I was charged by the United States, and I was in their courts, they said, Marc Emery has produced more marijuana than any other person in the history of the U.S. criminal justice system, Your Honor. This is why at first they want 28 to 40 years. But fortunately, I am Canadian, and they need to extradite me first. And so there is a lot of resistance to this extradition. And eventually the Americans say, okay, we're going to make you this deal. You have to stop fighting this extradition, which had been going on for 5 years. If you stop fighting this extradition, you will only do 5 years. And your two co-accused, they will do no jail. At first they said they must do 10 years and you do 28 to 40. Wow, we were so scared. But then eventually they say you will do 5 years and they will do no jail. They will be free. They just have to plead guilty and then they are released. And so I agree to this, and they go to the U.S. and they plead guilty and they are released. But I have to go and do the 5 years.
Mark, could legalization of cannabis worldwide have negative consequences too?
Legalizing cannabis worldwide?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's never a real legalization where everyone is permitted to grow and possess and sell.
Okay.
In other words, with no regulation. This is good. Cannabis is very safe. Our people are very principled. In a legal environment, we would not have bad weed, right? But we don't need regulation. We don't need the government at all in any way telling us anything. In Canada, this is a major disaster. The government says they are legalizing cannabis, but the reality is they are actually recriminalizing it again. They are just making it so that big corporations with money can grow the weed and then they can sell it to the Canadian consumer. But I cannot buy weed from my friends. I cannot sell weed. I can only grow 4 plants in some provinces, but in the biggest places you can't grow it all. So it's a very bad legalization. And this is the problem. The government that hunted us for 50 years and persecuted us and put us in jail and made all these very bad laws are the same people who will enforce the legalization. So there is actually more money for the police. Now that it's being legalized, there's more money for police because they are going to stop us in the cars and they're going to try and put us in jail. They're going to try and arrest us more for having illegal cannabis because the only cannabis that is legal is if at the government stores or if you grow your 4 plants. But if you're smoking in a car or you have even weed beside you in the car, it's all you're going to lose your license.
What about cannabis abuse?
There is no cannabis abuse.
You think so? Okay.
No. Well, tell me what cannabis abuse would be.
Well, I don't know. Irresponsible use.
Well, what would be irresponsible use? Like we can see irresponsible use of alcohol because when a person is drunk and they are abusive or they're throwing up or they're sick, then this is a problem for them. And if they commit crimes or hurt people, this is a social problem. But actually, millions and millions of people drink alcohol and they don't do anything bad. So are we saying that the alcohol use is bad or this person is inappropriately using it? So we would have to say it is the individual because many people drink alcohol and they don't do bad things. So we have to say it is the individual responsibility. And I don't believe there is an unsafe use of cannabis. Now, I say this, but actually on 13 times in my life, I have gotten sick from too much cannabis. For example,
That can happen.
but sick is different because when you get sick from cannabis, and for me it's always the same. You know, sometimes people give me a dab, and it's a very big dab.
Okay,
and they say, oh, because you are a Prince of Pot, you are used to a lot of weed, we give you big dabs. I said, no, don't give me big dab. Give me a small dab, precisely because everyone is giving me weed all the time. I don't want to get sick because then I'm embarrassing in front of my people. We cannot have this. But you know what? Sometimes they give me a big dab, and then I go, uh-oh, that's too much. Now I'm going to be sick. And it's always the same. I try to relax, but it's not working. I'm getting sweating, I'm feeling a bit dizzy. And when you feel dizzy, I'm going to throw up.
Yeah.
So I go throw up, and then I go, oh, now I'm feeling really terrible. I need to lie down. And the problem is I go lie down, but until you stop throwing up, you cannot get any sleep. So as soon as you throw up, and it's all gone, then you go to sleep, and then the next day you're fine. But this is not a bad sign. People think, oh, that's bad. No, it's not bad, because the body can only take so much of anything. It can only handle so much coffee, tea. If you drink too much water, you will drown, actually. If you eat too much food, you will have to throw up. So in nature, the body has these ways of cleansing the system. So if I do too big a dab, or too much marijuana, or I'm bong hitting at a party and I'm doing too much, the body says, listen, if you're going to have a lot of this weed, I'm going to have to make you sick. And the reason I'm going to make you sick is not because I don't like you, but I can only have so much THC in my system, and then we have too much. And if we have too much, it has to go out. And how is it going to go out? You're going to go shit, you're going to throw up, and you're going to feel bad, and you're going to go to sleep. I need to make you stop having this cannabis because you have too much. So it's a natural, normal thing. The next day you will be fine. But every time you do too much of something, even good foods or water, your body says, we can't handle too much. So we're going to make this happen, and you'll have to learn from this example.
Okay, what would be your advice to young people who would like to try and or use cannabis?
Okay, I'm talking, so I'm getting a lot of saliva.
Okay.
But you know what? The answer is the same for people who want to smoke cannabis. Don't do it with a European, because they will introduce you to tobacco. And this is a very bad thing. We do not do this in North America or South America. Very few people are mixing with tobacco. And those people we ostracize. We say to them, you're bad because you're a bad example. But in Europe, everybody mixes tobacco with cannabis, and it's a terrible thing because all young people will become familiar with cannabis through their friends who are smoking tobacco, and this is politically unacceptable because you cannot say politically that marijuana is safe if you are mixing it with the most dangerous plant. So for me, this is a very bad, vulgar European habit, and I want to start a campaign and ultimately have a shop called Smoke Pure Europe, where we don't allow people to smoke tobacco, where only bongs and pipes and for hash and dabs and weed, but no tobacco. And we need to have these all across Europe so that people can come in for what I would call a clean experience without tobacco.
Are you indica or sativa type of person?
Well, actually I like all weed. I'm not a... to me, those distinctions are not important either.
Do you make a difference between indoors and outdoors, for example?
Well, indoor is going to be stronger. Indoor is always stronger, but I kind of like outdoor if it's grown really well. For example, in Colombia, everyone can grow 20 plants, and everybody grows outside. Nobody grows inside in Colombia. I wish they would try, because I think it would be a good experiment. Yeah. But what they do is they grow on their roof, but they have the plastic above them.
Okay.
So they have the light from the sun coming, but not the water from the rain.
Your favorite strains?
Okay, now I don't have favorite strains. I have favorite growers. Some growers are really great and they make all things good. So I like the good growers, and I'm not really fussy. For example, we had kosher kush while I was here in Belgrade, and actually it was very good.
Yeah.
But I've had kosher kush before, a kosher kush that wasn't very good. So this time kosher kush was great because the grower was really good.
Yeah.
The grower was from Athens, actually. The kosher kush came from Athens.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yes, and the only weed here was the Northern Lights with Milos and the Albanian weed that I smoked. But actually,
it wasn't that bad.
No, the Albanian weed is good if it's not pressed. If it's a real bud, like the Albanian I smoked with buds, and they look nice, but they look kind of brown.
Yeah.
They had a dark color, but they smoked good and they got you high, but it wasn't pressed, right? The pressing creates problems, especially if it's got seeds and stems, but it's cheap probably.
Very cheap. Almost free.
The Albanians are like, in South America, it's like Paraguay. You go to Chile or Brazil or Argentina, the weed comes a lot from Paraguay. And I don't know what's going on in Paraguay, but they grow a lot of weed. They press it into bricks, and they send it out to the rest of South America, and it's cheap. Well, Albania is the Paraguay of Europe, in that they are growing a lot of weed, and then all these mafias take it, and they send it to Serbia and Greece and Italy, and even Italy, all over Europe.
One more question, short one. What form of cannabis use is your favorite and why?
Okay, really I like joints best, but the best way to get high fastest is in a pipe or in a bong. And the only thing about bongs and pipes, though, is that I will get a cough after a little while. I will start to cough because it's too much smoke and heat. It's the heat, too. Smoke and heat at once. So a joint is easier, but it's more wasteful. It takes longer to get high. Sometimes you don't get high. But with a bong or pipe, you always get high because it's fast. It's a fast titration. So that's my favorite way. I like to do a dab, though. Dabs are a great way to get high very quickly. I like to do buckets, gravity bongs, like where you use...
Cookies, oil? No?
No, because I never know what the dosage is. And with cookies...
I hear all smokers have the same problem.
Yes,
I love cookies.
because if you make the cookies, it's different because you know what's in it. But if someone gives me a cookie, either nothing happens and I don't notice it, or I get sick. It's too strong. So... You know, I never know whether I should eat the whole cookie, 3 cookies, half a cookie. But with a pipe, I know exactly how it's going to work. So that is my preference. But every way to get high is good if you need to get high.
You have some message for Serbian people?
Yes, you need to grow more pot, grow more pot, grow more. And not only that, you will make a good living too. Just sell to your friends. Everyone has enough friends that they could sell the pot they grow to their friends, and they can make enough money to live, and they won't get caught, and it's a good thing. Now, I would suggest, you know, if you grow really good pot, you will become a very successful entrepreneur, gardener, and you can use the profits from these weed sales to open a shop where you could sell bongs and pipes and books and magazines and vaporizers. There are not many in Europe there's not many vaporizers, and actually there are not many nice bongs either. You know, you go into my place, you have dozens and dozens of beautiful bongs of all kinds, and rigs for dabs and sublimators. There are really not many places in Eastern Europe with these nice things, and it's probably they cannot afford them. But in my experience, every community has people with money. And the people with money, they like the best things. So yeah, you could have the regular pipe like I smoke, and you can sell it for, you know, $15 to $20 for this pipe. Where is it? But you can have very expensive things for the people who have the good money. And there are always people in every major city who have money who like to buy nice things. So you could sell for the regular person the rolling papers and the small pipes and the plain bongs, but for the special people with money, you can sell the crafty and the mighty vaporizers and really nice bongs. And I think that's why, actually, I think a Cannabis Culture in Belgrade would do good. If I brought a shop here myself, it would probably be successful. Right? So these are projects I'm thinking of. When I'm going through South America and Europe, I'm thinking, what are these communities where it would be possible for me to put a Cannabis Culture shop, not selling weed, maybe selling weed to see if Milos comes into my shop and he's selling, and I know him, then I could sell him weed and it's not a problem.
Mark, thank you very much. It was a great interview.
Okay, and if you come to Toronto, I will show you Toronto. We'll take you to all our illegal dispensaries.